800-951-0592. Joe and Jason here on this Wednesday. I'm all out. Add platinum to your portfolio and do it today. We've had platinum fall about $50 in the last couple of days. This is an all-out buy. Listen, we're going to have a 1 million ounce plus deficit if things go perfectly. And I don't think they're gonna, because South Africa has huge power problems, and of course then Russia, we know the story there. That's like 90% of all the platinum mined in the world. We got 1 ounce platinum maple leaf coins today, $1,225. We also, yesterday we were running $10 gold pieces, and we're going to have those again today, 1 through 19 at 11:30, 20 or more at 11:25. And right now, gold's up. I mean, it's down $3 today, but it's up like $8 from where we were yesterday. So it's an even better buy today. I still have 2 rolls of 10th ounce. So I got about 100 1/10 ounce American gold Eagles, and those are at $275. So lots of great choices today. Continue to stack them up here at 800-951-0592 as the data points just confuse. Rents spiking up again. At the same time, oil, which, winter is when oil's at its lowest. Then it starts to rise in the spring, and then when we get to summer, right, and that's when oil starts peaking again. Huge. I don't know how you have 12 million less barrels. It just tells you how screwed up the government is, in my opinion, anyway. But nonetheless, looks like energy prices are becoming a problem. 20 million households. Okay, so 20 million households, probably about 25% of the U.S. population. So 20 million households, we're talking, probably 75 million people, right, in those 20 million households, give or take, are now behind on their power bills. And the numbers are expected to climb. By the way, that's an increase of about 3 million households from last year. They say households owe a total of $19.5 billion in unpaid power bills. That's $4 billion higher than last year. That's huge. I'm like, what? That's almost 30% higher than last year. And they're saying, hey, they've got to buy food. They got to pay the rent. The one bill that they're delaying, Jason, seems to be the power bill, but unfortunately, it's getting worse instead of better. COVID funds have run out. So the government was giving out $8 billion of subsidies last year. That's only going to be $6 billion of subsidies this year. Power bills on average are now up $100 a month over the last 2 years. I'd hate to see if they went back like 5 years. But they're now saying that the average power bill in the United States will be well over $500 a month. And, of course, on top of loss of federal funding. And, again, Jason, this is probably, you think about subprime auto market, right? These are probably the same people, right? This is probably the same households. Hey, I'm behind on my car payment, and I'm struggling. I'm behind on my power bill. And all of a sudden, you start doing the math, and you're like, wait a minute. We're talking close to a third of the country.
Power bills being all your utilities, I guess, natural gas, electricity, so on.
That would be my guess, right? I mean, here in Arizona, your power bill is probably $500 in the summertime. But my guess would be, right, that's going to be power, whether it be your electric, your natural gas, heating oil, depending on whatever it is, propane, whatever you're using to heat and cool the home.
That sounds about right to me. As an average, of course, there's people that have smaller places and pay less. But then there's people with bigger places that pay much more than $500. So that jives with me, Joe, and I can see where that's going to be a much bigger number coming into this winter, which is many, many months off. But I don't see why. Once again, keep saying it, with inflation, no matter that it's lower, it's just lower. Lower means it's just going to cost more, a little less than last year. So that means $500, Joe, should move on up to $600 and so on.
Yeah, and this is something where, when you look at the average power bill over the last 2 years, and we know inflation was started really that whole first year. Remember, they were telling you transitory. That was like 3 years ago. But on the power bill side, they're saying, hey, inflation was about 25% over the last 2 years. Okay, well, cut that in half. Well, that's 12.5% inflation. I mean, the highest the Fed would admit to was 1 month they admitted to 9. Right now they're saying inflation's 5? The numbers are so unrealistic. That's the thing that just really, I think what we're really seeing here is the government can tell us the numbers whatever they want. You can say inflation's 5. That's fine. That you have the right to do that, I guess. But that doesn't mean that's what it actually is. And when we're talking about, these are necessities, right? I got to live somewhere, right? We're talking about rents and mortgages, and look at what we started this show with, mortgage application. By the way, I said 4%. I apologize. It was 7% down month over month. I mean, or week over week. This is a huge problem. People can't afford to live in these places. And now rents are going back up again. That's the biggest part of your income. Then you talk about your car, right? Auto loans. I mean, up until 3 years ago, you could get an auto loan for 0%. Right now, the average auto loan's like 7 and change? I mean, if you got great credit and you buy the one model they can't sell, then maybe you got 3%.
And Joe, you were talking earlier about rents going up. I'll touch on that again. It goes back into my brain. Everybody, at least here in Colorado, they're getting their property bill for next year. It's the 2023 tax evaluation. It's 30% higher. How is the guy that's renting to you getting 30% higher value on his properties going to be paying less in tax? He's going to be a lot more in taxes. That goes a lot more in rent then, Joe.
That goes hand in hand, doesn't it? I know, it's not the greatest picture. It's not, and it's confusing. But again, the more the data comes in, the sooner it will get resolved. Patriot Radio News Hour. We'll be back after the break. (800) 951-0592. Joe and Jason here on this Wednesday. Again, platinum. By the way, palladium, 1,300 and change. I've been telling all of you to get rid of palladium and change it in for platinum. Platinum pulling back. Great day to buy here. 1 ounce platinum maple leaf. 1 ounce platinum maple leaf. $1,225. $10 liberties that we ran yesterday in gold. I mean, gold's down $3, 1972, but that's like $10 higher than what we had them on yesterday. 1 through 19, 1,130, 20 or more at $1,125 on the $10 Liberty gold coins, the half-ounce gold coins. And then last but not least, I got a couple of rolls of the 10th ounce American Gold Eagles at $275 a coin. That is $50 less than like 6 weeks ago. That would be like a $500 drop in gold. Hopefully, I'm hoping it's just because the mint minted a bunch down. But either way, I've got a couple of rolls of those remaining as well at 800-951-0592. And, we're sitting here and we're looking at inflation and, things not going the way we want them to go. Rents popped up. That's not a good thing. We talked about power bills. Hey, power bills are on the rise. We've seen the 10-year note go from, in the 3.4s up to 3.7s. That has pushed mortgage rates higher. That pushes auto loan rates higher as well. But this next one, this one really hurts. Coffee. I mean, I don't know about you guys. I got to have that cup. Now, I don't drink, I'm not one of those guys. I don't drink a whole pot of coffee, but I got to have that first one. I need that first cup of coffee of the day. Just starts my day off, and without it, I get a headache. I mean, I'm just lagging without it. Coffee prices. This is wholesale coffee prices. Spiked to a 12-year high, and they're saying that the weather patterns are not conducive and that it's going to be a very tough year for coffee production. And they're saying that coffee prices maybe, unfortunately, could approach all-time record highs. I think we're going to see this too. And another thing we haven't talked about, have you seen the Panama Canal? Apparently, the Panama Canal is kind of doing like the Colorado River was doing, and it's so low that, Jason, that a bunch of ships actually can't get through it.
I saw them having those troubles last year, and I haven't been paying attention to it, but I'm guessing if it stayed dry, it's probably even worse this year. So, I did see that. It's been a while since I've seen that, so I haven't seen the update, which is much be what you're talking about. I'm guessing it's worse. Yeah, they had a couple ships that were getting stuck, I think, at one point. So, yeah, that's you got to have water to use those channels.
Yeah, and again, that's it. That's the supply chain things that can lead to some more unexpected inflation, unwanted inflation. It's just, man, I hate to say it. There's only one way for it to go away. It's only one. And that's, 10, 15, 20 million people losing their jobs. I mean, this is not a great situation. And I will say this, Jamie Dimon's comments really caught me off guard because he knows better than anybody. You can't have 7% Fed's funds rate. You can't do that, can we? I mean,
yeah, I think you can. They just have to decide to do it, Joe.
Right? 40 years ago, that wouldn't have been a big deal, right? But, man, I don't remember the last time we had a Fed's funds rate of 6%. I got to look it up. I'll look it up. I don't think
2005 maybe.
Now, the high there was 5.25. We got to 5.25. And Ben Bernanke was telling us it's just a subprime problem, and there's a little froth in the market. And this was in August, and it was like August 07, and it was at 5.25. Because remember, we went down to 1 after 9/11, and we had come back and got to 5.25, and he was talking about raising rates again. And then all of a sudden, all hell broke loose, as we know, and Lehman Brothers, Bear Stearns, the whole start of the whole financial crisis. But I don't think that we've even seen 6% this millennium. Matter of fact, if the Fed does hike again, I could be wrong. I'll try to double check it here, but I don't think I am. I think I'm right here. If they raise again, that may be the highest the Fed funds rate has been this millennium.
I think you're very likely true. So all I can remember is it was kind of high there for a while. in this range in the early 2000s. But I would have to say this. You're probably right, but the Great Depression happened. There's no reason why it couldn't happen again. And if the Fed wants to push the rates, they'll push the rates. I mean, they were tasked with that responsibility. If that's what they want to do, that's what they will. And I don't think the Fed really cares. The handlers of the Fed, I don't think they really care. If they want something to happen, Joe, it's just like dying. No one believes it. Everyone knows we're going to die. But until that moment where you're dying, it's not a reality, right? So can they raise the rates really high and smash everything? It only benefits those at the top if they can buy up cheap assets when things crash, Joe. So at some point, don't you think it could happen? Maybe.
Right? At some point, you're right. Logic would tell you at some point it should happen, right? We'll be back wrapping up the day. (800-951-0592) Patriot Radio News Hour. Joe and Jason wrapping up here on this Wednesday. Mike McCarthy, he is the Speaker of the House, has come out and said, as far as the debt ceiling goes, that they are sticking to the government must spend less next year. That has been a non-starter for the Biden administration. This has got losses now picking up steam here. And again, like I said earlier, it sounds great, man. What a great soundbite for TV. Doesn't that sound great? They're starting with $130 billion, which means to me, Jason, they're willing to take less, right? If you're going to say, we want to spend $130 billion less, they probably would agree to like $50 billion and claim some type of a victory here. And all of this is a drop in the bucket. I mean, just another quarter, just one more quarter point rate hike would actually force the government, even if they spent $130 billion less next year, that would wipe that all away, because the amount of interest on the debt that we would more than offset the $130 billion.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, that number is just going to get bigger and bigger. I mean, if they're not going to pay it down, then the interest versus that total just gets bigger. So even if they do nothing, even if they froze it, which they're not freezing it. If they would just balance the budget actually and just pay with whatever their taxes coming in, if they would just spend just that and just no longer add to the debt, the amount you pay towards the interest on the debt would still go up because that number builds. You have to take the number down. There's no payment, on the principal going on here. When's the last time there's any payment on the principal, Joe? Right? And that's what that is. That's when debt gets paid off. The principal actually goes down when the debt gets. It's a backwards money system we're in. If you pay off your house, you're actually destroying the money supply, right? So if people are paying off their homes, paying off their credit cards, if people are actually doing that, it would actually create even more tightening, and there'd be less money in the system. So they don't want to pay off the principal because they consider growth more debt. It's just backwards, and it's just how people get enslaved. It just helps those at the top. It just sucks, Joe. Right? You don't be in debt. Don't be in debt, especially credit card debt. It just does you no good.
800-951-0592. Janet Yellen is also talking. No shocker. She says there is, with absolute certainty, they will run out of money in early June. There was a report saying, well, maybe they could go to July. Janet Yellen said, no, it's coming in a matter of days. Then she followed it up with this line. She says that she's worried about, and I quote, substantial financial market distress even after there's a debt ceiling deal. So, again, you always get a little bit of truth in some of these things. Janet Yellen, now, well, remember, now she's been telling you, the banking system's sound and the financial system's sound and everything's wonderful. And now she's saying substantial financial market distress. And I'm not talking about the debt ceiling. After we have a deal on the debt ceiling, I'm worried about, and again, it's simple. She should be worried. We should all be worried because we know, hey, you know what? We lived high on the hog and we ran up these debts, and now all of a sudden everybody's struggling to pay the bill, Jason.
Ain't going to get better. It's just going to get harder. And that usually means lower standard of living for everybody that pays the taxes to pay this debt interest off every year, Joe.
800-951-0592. Joe and Jason, we're coming right back with the half-empty cup.